of ready, set, go. Ready was preparing yourself mentally to bring God into your life. Set was taking action and starting to plan how you were going to bring God into your life, and going was actually doing it. These are moments throughout the week, small moments, that we found these themes and we felt the presence of God within our camp.
On Tuesday, we went on a field trip to the Padre Pio Museum. So I did not know who Padre Pio was. So if you are wondering who he is, he was a priest and he used healing through Christ. So while we were there, we learned about the stories of two different people. There was one, a little girl who had a very severe medical condition, and her parents were told that she did not have much time left. And her mother had started smelling the strong smell of roses, and she had gotten a call by Padre Pio saying to come see him. So they packed up and went all the way over to Italy to see him. And they were in the first meeting with him, the first day they were there, and he just walked by and put his hand on her head. They went back the second day because the mother was like, well, we didn't even get to talk to him. So they went back the second day, and he placed his hand on her head again. So after that, they had returned home, and a few weeks later, they had went back to the doctors, and they had taken another x-ray, and her bladder had come back. There was another spot, and her bladder was back. So she was able to live, and she is actually alive right now still. The second person was a man who was in a very bad vehicle accident and had had severe head trauma and issues with his brain. And also the doctors were not thinking it was going to be a good outcome. So his mother was praying, and she had heard of Padre Pio, so she was praying to him that he would help. And the one night in the hospital room, the man saw a man in a robe standing in his doorway, which he had thought was his uncle. And the roommate also saw this man, which he assumed was the man's uncle. And he was telling his mom about seeing this man, and his mother was like, that's not your uncle. And they were like, well, and who could have it been? So it must have been Padre Pio. So on Tuesday night, our counselors were all sitting there talking before they went to bed, and they started to smell this strong smell of roses or any type of flower, like a floral scent. And they were thinking, man, that's really weird. We were just talking about that today, how when Padre Pio was present, that's the smell that they were smelling. And as they walked back to their tents, they had smelled it as well. And they had figured that someone was with us.
As you know, every year we hand out these bags and then we collect them with food in them to give to the multi-service. We were passing them out on Tuesday, and while we did that, there was this man in a wheelchair at one of the houses we stopped at. And when we handed the man the information, he was reading through it, and he said he couldn't go out and get any food, but he still wanted to give. So he went back into his house, and he came out, and he said he was going to give us $2. He started sorting through a bunch of change, so you could tell that this was really like a lot to give from him. And that was really a show of how he was putting God in his life and giving, even though he didn't have the most and wasn't necessarily receiving the most.
On the first night, we did a labyrinth to get our mind ready to accept Christ. Before we started, there was no wind. And then when we started, the wind started to pick up. And then it stopped when we finished. And it shows that the Holy Spirit was with us during that time. These are a few of the stories, a few of the things we did during camp this week and thought impacted us.
As one eager eagle leads to the east, the other eager eagle leads out. As one eager eagle leads to the east, the other eager eagle leads out. As one eager eagle leads into the east, the other eager eagle leads out. As one eager eagle leads into the east, the other eager eagle leads out.